For those of you watching the recording later, the power is out all over South Whidbey. We have managed to get enough internet access to have this board meeting because we have some critical issues on the agenda, which we will be discussing. Yeah, we'll get people on who show up. Hopefully everyone's staying safe and warm.
I noticed that we have one attendee, Dr. Jeff. Of course, he has power where he is right now.
Yeah, as usual, we'll give it a minute or two, but I don't expect a whole lot of folks. I'm sorry that this has happened, but we do have some critical business that we must attend to due to policy and timing issues.
And folks can call in, and there is available ability to come on in. And there's Damien. Welcome, Damien.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to see you.
Brooke, it's always good to be seen and not viewed.
Okay, we've had a couple of minutes now. It looks like we're not going to have anyone else. So with that in mind, okay. It looks like our other student representative will be a few minutes, 15 minutes late. We can get through the opening parts and then he can join us for the actual discussion parts. That'll be fantastic. With that in mind, I will call this meeting of the South Whidbey School District School Board to order. This is the December meeting. Marnie, would you take it away with the land acknowledgement?
Thank you. Yes. South Whidbey School District would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral homelands, originally known as Chakolchi in the Schutzseed of the Coast Salish peoples, on the lands of the Lower Skagit, Tulalip, Swinomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial, who have hunted, fished, and gathered here, who have taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty and their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. Please join us in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude to the Indigenous people of this territory for their enduring care and protection of this land, which we currently occupy and share through the Treaty of Point Elliott, signed by 82 tribes in Mukilteo on January 22nd, 1855. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments will happen as normal. We only have a single attendee at the moment, but I'm going to speak the words for posterity, I suppose, that if you want to make a public comment, please include your name, full name and location, and then the comment in the Q&A section, and we will address those comments at that point. I will read them as they come in, if they come in. We'll now move on to oath of office. We have 3 newly elected directors to take the oath of office. Dr. Moshe, I believe that as Secretary of the Board, you usually handle this responsibility.
Thank you. It is certainly my honor. If the 3 new members would raise their right hand, I believe hopefully you can see the screen, but repeat after me. And when I say state your name, don't repeat state your name. I state your name.
Andrea.
Marnie Jackson.
Do hereby solemnly swear.
Do hereby solemnly swear.
Solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support
the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Washington.
and the
Constitution
Constitution
of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of Director of South Whidbey School District 206, Island County, State of Washington, to the best of my ability.
of Director of South Whidbey School District number 206, Island County, State of Washington, to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, and thank you for serving on the school board.
Thank you.
Welcome back, all of you. It's been a pleasure to serve with each and every one of you, and I look forward to continuing to do so for the remainder of our respective terms. Immediately following the swearing in of newly elected directors, we then move on to annual organizational meeting where we set up the roles on the board. This will be done by nomination and then roll call vote. We'll start with board chair. So if we have a new board chair, then they will take over running the rest of the elections. At this point, I'll open the floor for nominations for the role of board chair.
I would like to nominate Brooke Williford.
I have a nomination. Do I have a second?
I second that nomination.
And one thing that is tradition, but not within the policies, is we always ask the person being nominated if they would like to accept the nomination. I do accept the nomination. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position? Dr. Moshe, you have something to add?
No, I'm counting. You have to ask 3 times.
Oh, are there any other nominations for the role of board chair? Are there any other nominations for the role of board chair? Seeing no other nominations, we will move on to the roll call vote. And let's see here, we will start with the newest on the person who has been on the board the least time and move up from there. So Marnie Jackson, how do you vote?
I vote for Brooke Williford for board chair.
Ann Johnson,
I vote for Brooke Williford for board chair.
Andrea Downs,
I vote for Brooke Williford for board chair.
Damien Green,
Brooke Williford, board chair.
and I vote for myself as well. I have been retained as board chair. Thank you very much. We will now move on to vice chair and board auditor. Do I have a nomination for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Ann Johnson.
Do I have a second?
I second that nomination.
Okay. Ann, would you like to accept the nomination?
I accept that nomination.
Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Welcome, Saul. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Being no other nominations, we'll move on to the roll call vote. Marnie Jackson,
I nominate, I vote Ann Johnson for vice chair.
Ann Johnson,
I vote Ann Johnson for vice chair.
Andrea Downs,
I vote for Ann Johnson for vice chair.
Damien Green.
Ann Johnson, vice chair.
I vote for Ann Johnson for vice chair as well. Congratulations, Ann Johnson. You will be the vice chair for the upcoming year. We'll move on to the legislative representative. Do we have a nomination for the legislative representative?
I nominate Andrea Downs. Marnie Jackson, sorry, for legislative representative. Marnie Jackson, my apologies.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And Marnie Jackson, would you like to accept that nomination?
I would like to accept that nomination. Thank you.
Excellent. We have, are there any other nominations for legislative representative? Are there any other nominations for legislative representative? Are there any other nominations for legislative representative? There being no other nominations for legislative representative, we will move on to the roll call vote. Marnie Jackson,
I vote Marnie Jackson for legislative representative.
Ann Johnson,
I vote Marnie Jackson for legislative representative.
Andrea Downs,
I vote for Marnie Jackson for legislative representative.
Damian Green.
Marty Jackson, legislative rep.
I vote for Marnie Jackson for legislative rep as well. Congratulations, Marnie Jackson. You'll be serving as our legislative representative for the upcoming year. Next, we move on to WIAA representative. Do I have any nominations for WIAA representative?
I
Nominate Andrea Downs.
Do I have a second for that nomination? Not hearing a second. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Damian Green.
Do I have a second for that nomination?
I second that nomination.
Damian, would you like to accept that nomination?
Okay, so in the essence of not trying to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Any surprises, but I had the surprise today of having a power outage and everything else.
Yes.
And I have an email that I'm sending to all of you. And also with the power outage being that is going on, sometimes my generator flips a switch and I could just go blank here and you might lose me. So if that's the case, I'll try to get back on. But this will be my last meeting. I am going to resign effective January 1st, 2022. And so at this point, I mean, if you want it for, purposes of the next 3 weeks or whatever, that's fine. I'll take it. But I wanted you guys to know that I'll get you an email as soon as I have regular stuff back up and running.
Completely understood. The no surprise there in the email. No worries about the surprise there. I'm sorry to hear that you'll be leaving the board, that you'll be resigning. I don't see any harm in having you as the WIA representative for 3 weeks, but I don't see any gain in it either. So I'll leave it up to you, actually, if you'd like to accept the nomination, and you can make that choice.
I will, I'm trying to think, I don't think anything happens with the WIAA until May, so I will accept it, and then you guys will already have an idea of what you're doing when you go to fulfill my spot.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we have one nomination that has been seconded and accepted. Do I have any other nominations for WIAA representative? Are there any other nominations for WIAA representative? Are there any other nominations for WIAA representative? There being no other nominations, we'll move on to the roll call vote for WIAA representative. Marnie Jackson, how do you vote?
First off, if I may interrupt process just to say, Damian, thank you for the notification of that decision, and that deserves more comment than there is time for here, but thank you. I vote Damian Green for short-term WIAA representative.
Ann Johnson.
Same as Marnie. Thank you so much, Damian, for all your service to the school district. And there's way more to say, but I too vote for Damian Green for WIAA rep.
Andrea Downs.
Damian, I'm sad to see you go. And I also vote for you for the next 3 weeks for WIAA.
And Damian Green.
So as you know, I was sincere and legitimate in my vote for and nominating, Andrea Downs, especially since she played football. So with that, I will vote for Damian Green.
Okay. And I will vote for Damian Green as well. Congratulations, Damian Green. You are the WIAA representative for the school board for the next 3 weeks. And I absolutely agree with the others that your the announcement of your resignation deserves more comment, and I hope we can do so during board comments at the end of the meeting, because I do agree that it deserves more comment. So we'll move on to policy representative. Do we have a nomination for policy representative for the next year?
I nominate Andrea Downs.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been nominated and seconded. Andrea Downs, do you accept the nomination?
I will accept that one. Yes.
Okay, do we have any other nominations for policy representative? Do we have any other nominations for policy representative? Do we have any other nominations for policy representative? Hearing no other nominations, we'll move on to the roll call vote for policy representative. Marnie Jackson, how do you vote?
I vote Andrea Downs for policy representative.
Ann Johnson, how do you vote?
I vote Andrea Downs for policy representative.
Andrea Downs.
I will vote for Andrea Downs for policy representative.
Damian Green.
Andrea Downs, policy representative.
And I will make it unanimous. Andrea Downs for policy representative. Congratulations, Andrea. You will retain that position for the next year. That has completed our annual organizational meeting, and we'll move on with the rest of the agenda unless there are any motions to go on the floor before we do so.
Brooke, I would like to make a motion for the workshop that we remove items B, C, and D out of respect for the power outage that our community is experiencing. And as those are pieces that can be moved, I think we should move them.
We have a motion. Do I have a second for this motion?
I second that motion.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion to be had? Just for anyone following along at home later or currently, items B, C, and D are the community advisory team updates, WASDA annual conference report, and student attendance on NSB conference in Washington, D.C., which I believe that which is also on the agenda in new business. So there will be an opportunity for discussion there.
So we would, I have a question. We would be delaying this to the next workshop?
Delaying any discussion on those to the next workshop, yes.
Got it. That makes sense.
Although we'll have the opportunity to discuss the student board attendance to the NSB Advocacy Institute during new business.
Thank
So
you.
it's just, yeah, so it's just moving them from the workshop. Okay, is there any other discussion to be had on this motion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to remove items B, C, and D from the workshop on the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, those three items will be removed from our workshop agenda. We'll make sure to get B and C on the agenda of the next workshop, and D, the student attendance, will handle during new business. Okay, and now something I did learn at the WASDA annual conference report. Barring any, without any objection, we will approve the agenda as amended. Hearing no objection, the agenda is presented, approved as presented. It's a new thing that I learned at one of the conferences that can speed things up.
Highly efficient.
What was that?
Highly efficient.
Yes. Hearing no objection, without any objection, we'll approve the minutes as well. I forgot to include that before. Okay, the minutes have been approved as well. We'll go on to actually do the consent agenda in the normal way. However, that'll just speed up the beginning of meetings in the future. So do I hear a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion to be had? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The consent agenda has been approved as presented. Okay, we will now move into, we will now suspend the business meeting, go into a workshop format to discuss the levy committees for pro-con statements in regards to the levies. Dr. Moshe, I believe that's you. Or no, Mr. Pullman.
I'm going to turn it to Dan. Essentially, this is a new rule since the last time we ran a levy. So Dan, if you want to jump in. You're muted.
So basically, it's a requirement that we are to create, or the school board is to create 2 committees. A committee to write a statement supporting the levy and one to write a statement against the levy. It can be up to 3 members on each committee. And you are to select the members that you want. And then I will send this information to Island County tomorrow so they're aware of who it is. And then I will send documentation to the people that are selected, letting them know that they have been selected to write the statement. And also the instructions about, you know, how large the statement can be and all the things that go with it. We have 3 people signed up for each committee at this time. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Chair Williford, to have the discussion.
Thank you very much. So we can, it is my understanding that we can pick 1 to 3 people for each committee. We have 3 voices, and when we get to time to vote on this, I will be recusing myself from the vote since my name is on, since I am one of the applicants to be on the 4 committee. Is there any other comments or discussion, questions about the process or anything like that?
So do we take them individually? Is that how we're doing this, discussing them individually?
We can certainly do that. We can, if there are any that folks, any names that people know and have positive or negative reasons to have them on or off, if there's any questions about what it means to be on.
I just have a couple of questions. On the file I got from Dan, I only saw 1 person on there that was in favor. So now I know that you're the second one in favor, Brooke. Who's the third?
Betsy Hofius is the third.
And let's just verify who was the first one as well, because
Teresa Forsyth. And,
okay,
certainly, for those who might be listening in via phone or otherwise, I'll read all 3 of the names, or all 6 of the names.
okay.
The 3 applicants, the 3 applicants for the Con Committee are Lorinda Newton from Clinton, Jeff Hackathorn from Mill Creek, Margaret King from Clinton. And the applicants for the 4 committee are Teresa Forsyth from Langley, Betsy Hofius from Clinton, and Brooke Williford from Langley.
So I have a couple of procedural questions that I'm curious to know. One, is there a state law that the persons that are involved in this need to reside within the district? Or any sort of guidelines along those lines?
The answer to that is no, there is not. There was a process a couple of years ago that went before the legislature, but it did not pass that required it. So at this point, there is no requirement to live within the district.
Okay. 2, how do they work together? Meaning that, yes, Brooke, I know you, but I don't know the other 2 that you'll be working with. And to avoid any sabotage or anything from either side, how do we know for sure that the 3 people being selected are all 3 or 3 opposed and 3 in favor,
Yeah.
or legitimate?
That's actually a good question.
We actually don't know. The process is that you select the people to work on the committee. We give them the directions and then they respond directly to the county. And then the county monitors whether it's an appropriate statement or not on their guidelines. So once we select them and notify them, they are basically working with the county to come up with whatever statement they come up with.
So the 3 of them work together to work with the county?
They work together to create a statement they send to the county.
Okay, they don't each individually do one and then the county melds it together?
No,
Or-
it's one statement of 200 words. That is, I notify the county that, these are the people on this committee, and then it's the county's part after that. But no, one person could write it and the other two have input, or however they work it out. It's the committee's job to come up with the statement.
Well, now you're getting to my last question, which was, is it, if there's 3 appointed, and rather than say 2, is it then a majority rules that if 2 are in agreement, then that's the final draft document?
I can't answer that because the 3 or 2 or 1 person has to write whatever statement they come up with. And we're not involved in that process at all. So they decide how they come up with their statement.
So it
Interesting.
sounds
Out of the
like,
district, totally outside of the district once they are appointed.
it sounds like there was not enough direction given by the legislature on this.
There is no direction other than you have to have at least 1 and not more than 3. And if you have less than 1, the county will try to find somebody to write one.
Gotcha.
And then it's up to the committee to submit or not submit a statement after they're selected.
Well, and each committee will submit 2 statements, is my understanding. One that is a statement and one that is a response to the other side's statement.
That may not be true in Island County. It
Oh,
is in King and Snohomish County, but Island County's guidelines don't say that. So
interesting.
there may not be a rebuttal statement from these committees.
Good question, Brooke.
Yeah.
But
But-
one person, the board does not have to select 3. You can select 1 or 2 or 3, but no more than 3. So if you want to ease the, the having to work together, you could appoint 1 person to write a statement, and then it would have to meet the criteria that the county has in terms of what it cannot do. It cannot slander, it cannot, that directions that, and they're on the Island County website, but they were sent to you as to what it can be. So the board has discretion on who and how many.
Dan, do you have a beat at all as to what the advantage of having 3 people or 2 people versus 1 person to write a solid statement?
I don't know if there is an advantage. It really comes down to how well the people work together. If you have 3 people and they have differing reasons for writing the statement, they only have 200 words. So it's going to be harder to craft a coherent statement that is an impact statement if you're trying to cover multiple things. And on the other side, if you only have 1 person and they're not really gifted at writing statements, there's the quality of the statement. So yeah, I don't know if there's an advantage or disadvantage really, but those are the things that I can think of as we talk about this.
I would say there's an advantage to more. Brain power is an exceptional use for this type of thing, I think, on both sides.
In terms of the names on the list, it's a little bit regrettable that the practice doesn't include some kind of statement of interest or opportunity for interview or something, because really it's just sort of a question of, are the names familiar to us? And if so, what are our impressions? But I will just share that Brooke, being a member of this board, is known to me and therefore has my confidence. And Betsy Hofius, being a teacher in our district, is known to me and was my own daughter's teacher and has my confidence. And that's the extent of my personal knowledge of these individuals. I will say that I have some hesitation around an applicant from outside our district, just in terms of questioning the relevance of that perspective versus one that's here in our community.
Marnie, I appreciate your voice in that. I have wonders, right? I wonder how Mr. Heckathorn heard about our levy, and I just want to understand rationale for why.
I can answer how he heard about the levy. He actually contacted the Island County auditors and had questions about what school districts in their jurisdiction was actually running a levy this year.
Okay.
So he was reaching out to the local, county organizations asking about levies. And I know he is also at this time on the Edmonds and the Everett committees to write the same statement.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Dan.
Given that, I wonder if it would be better to delay the approval of the pro and con until we have 3 applicants from within South Whitby, and also give the opportunity for more people who might be interested in the committees to also apply.
So we're unable to do that. This has to be submitted to the Allen County auditors by Friday. It's a state law that it has, otherwise, you know, it doesn't happen. They have certain timelines of when it has to go in, and it has to be by December 10th. So we have to do it tonight, and the board has to formally, you know, select whoever it is. So it's not something that we can wait on.
This was one of the
Otherwise,
reasons we couldn't
So that
delay
would have
it.
been a great suggestion, Sol, though. Thank you.
Yeah, this item, sorry to step on your comment there, Marnie, but this item was one of the reasons that we had to have the meeting tonight, despite the power outage.
That actually makes a lot of sense. That helps explain the a lot more than just this item. Thank you. I'm trying to stay out of this discussion as much as possible since my name is on the list, and I don't want to either actually or be seen as selecting those who will be writing against me or selecting whether or not I will be writing. So I'm just going to try to speak procedurally. Do we want to have folks come to, do we feel like we need to discuss more, or can someone craft a motion to come during new business to determine who we have on the committees?
I would appreciate hearing if anybody has either personal knowledge of these applicants or information that might not otherwise be available to us.
I will note.
Teresa Forsyth.
Oh, go ahead.
I know Teresa and Jim Forsyth. Jim Forsyth, you know, she's married to him. He has done forefront presentations. I know Teresa personally. Great writing skills. Of course, we know Betsy and we know Brooke. On the con team, the only knowledge I have of Lorinda and Margaret is that I've seen them at board meetings and they've made comment. I don't know Jeff other than what Dan has told you. So I have no real knowledge of them. Lorinda did write, I mean, I think you saw the emails. There were a couple sentences. Lorinda said she has experience with writing, has been following the district, and Margaret said something similar. So they do live in the district and they have been at board meetings. So
That's helpful. Thank you.
I think the only piece that I would offer is that I think just in the efforts of transparency, that if we do not move all 3 candidates from each committee forward, I think that we should keep it evenly numbered. So if we have 2 on the con, I think we should have 2 on the pro. I also just personally feel that, you know, levies are really community led and driven by the community. And so I feel that it's important for members to reside within the community that are going to be supporting that discussion. And I think that absolutely, if they want to reach out to a larger network to help build, you know, their expertise, like that's a wonderful thing to do. But I do think this is a community-based decision.
Yeah, I agree that it's because it's such a community-centered thing. Jeff Heckathorn might not be the best choice, but I mean, we're so limited with time in this situation that if we do remove Jeff, then we would have to remove you know, a member from the 4 committee, and then we only have 2 and 2, and that becomes difficult in making decisions sometimes when you have 2 people on a committee. So
it's in my opinion the best interest to just sign off on 3 and 3, given that we don't really have time to actually find more people.
I would just like to say I'm familiar with all the candidates on the floor. I think they'd all make excellent candidates. Teresa was actually my swim coach, and I know she's heavily involved in student activities. I know Mrs. Hofius from the elementary school, and of course, Brooke. On the con side, I'm a little bit skeptical of the Mill Creek applicant. I'm definitely more in favor of the Clinton applicants, but I don't know them personally, so I can't speak on behalf of them in that sense.
I have one last thing here, Dan, and for Dr. Mocha. And that was great, Saul. I kind of agreed with you as far as 3 and 3, as well as Andrea and the 2 and 2. I mean, you guys are basically saying the same thing. So, but what my question here now is, I'm trying to think about when it comes to supporting school levies and being an employee of the school district or a board member, if that is within the purview of the Public Disclosure Commission for that to be okay.
That is okay. There is no, they're not precluded from participating in writing a statement in any way.
I would certainly not use any district resources if I were to be selected for this. I would use my personal computer and my personal email address.
Yeah, no, that I appreciate that, Brooke, but I was really trying to think if there was something in there that limited people's participation in a levy that may or may not benefit them. That's all I'm trying to think about.
The thing with the levy, the board, not this particular group of people on the board, but this board in the past has come out with a statement in support of its own levy. And that's an acceptable thing to do. So that's just an aside. But just to put this in context, we're talking about a 200-word statement that goes in the voters pamphlet. This is not bigger than that. That's what this is. So, and that the county is going to work with the individuals to put it in there. I mean, there are some guidelines that have to be used, and if it's 252 words, they will print the first 200 words and cut it off at 200. So it's pretty defined. I don't think, I mean, it's an important decision, but this is for the voter's guide. This is nothing more than that.
And the other thing is that, if you have a committee of 2, they can reach out to other people to help write the statement. All it really says is that's 2 names that show up in the voters pamphlet as who actually wrote the statement. But you're allowed to reach out. If you had 10 other people that want to give you input on what to write, you could still do that. It's not limited to the 3 people themselves actually sitting down and writing it. It's the 3 people or 2 people or 1 that's going to submit the statement that they are representing as the statement that they want in the voter pamphlet. Mm-hmm. So it isn't just left up to the 1 or 3 people that you select. It can be a larger group of people working on the statements.
To the concerns, thank you, Dan. To the concerns about keeping both sides even, I'm quite willing to withdraw my name if the board would like to have 2 from each side and just have it people in the community, then there isn't a decision that needs to be made there. I'm happy to withdraw my name there.
May I offer also that in the interest of fairness, we could also approach it as we are considering choosing every applicant who resides within our district, regardless of side. So if it were an unbalanced 2 people writing on one side and 3 people writing on the other, it would still be every applicant from within our district who had shown interest in participating. Not necessarily suggesting that should be our way forward, but that could be a way forward that still doesn't feel particularly biased, except against keeping it local because it is a very local issue.
However, on sake of conversation, if you go 3 and 2, then it looks like that's a vote 3-2.
Sure.
So that's why I agreed with Saul's 3 or Andrea's 2. I agree with that philosophy of maintaining it being even.
Just another procedural note, if any of those watching from home or listening from home have comments, please use the Q&A function. This is a workshop period, so if you do have comments, they are welcome. Just include your full name and your location.
And Brooke, just so you know, I'm going to close out here for a minute. I'll be back shortly. I have a power issue I need to deal with.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of keeping this moving along, I'd like to ask if there are, if folks feel comfortable, feel ready and comfortable to choose committees or offer suggestions on committees when we get to the new business action items.
Sure.
I'm seeing nods or something from to Andrea. Are you prepped? Okay. So with that in mind, I think that we can close this discussion, this workshop discussion, and move on. And when we come to this new business item, we'll get motion. We'll just get a motion and discuss a motion on who to have on the committee. If that sounds appropriate to everyone. Okay. We will move on to public comment. We only have 5 folks here, but I will leave a couple of minutes. If you, actually, let's do something slightly different than usual. Since we only have 5 people here, please just put a note in the comments if you would like to make public comment. And then you can take the time to type up your full comment. If I don't get any note that someone wants to make a comment in the next 2 minutes, then we'll move on through the public comment section. And I'll start that 2 minutes about now.
Okay.
Generator just went down.
Yeah, I think the power may have switched.
Yeah, because we still have.
Generator went off, Dan. There you
I
go.
know that.
It is in the building though, and it's great that the internet stayed here through it.
Yeah, you'll have
I have
2
the battery
hours.
backup. Let's see if I can switch the power on.
Quite the night, isn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
we did get power back here in Clinton, so you might have power when you get home.
That would be wonderful.
Just to add another power related comment, power went out in Sketchet Head last night, 6:45 p.m. ish. So
Yeah, that was quite the shock. I was trying to figure out why it went out because it wasn't windy, so I was just overall confused.
it was a line down across the road. I was detoured when I was trying to head home from a boxing class.
Ah, that makes sense.
I don't know why the line was down.
It was quite inconvenient for to go out at 7 a.m. as the buses were on the road. But
Okay, I have nothing in the Q&A. It's been about 2 minutes. Thank you all for attending, whether or not you have comment. So we'll move on to new business in case we have to worry about battery availability. So our first item is Memorandum 2122-27, approval of student board attendance to NSBA Advocacy Institute in Washington, D.C. Do I have a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded, and now we will open it up to discussion. And I will turn things over to our student representatives to talk about what this actually is.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We have a presentation, but I think it was linked to the workshop. But I guess
Christy will get it for you. She can put it up there.
Yeah, it's
for you.
coming
Okay,
up.
thank you.
I don't know. I can see it on my screen, but it's not coming up very well on the shared screen.
Here it
Oh.
comes.
Hmm,
And you've got light. Excellent.
Nice.
that's exciting.
Audrey, should we alternate slides?
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Can you see it like this? If I put it this way, it's
No,
presentation
I'm still
mode?
seeing the agenda, Christy.
Oh. It's, okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna stop and reshare again and see if that comes up now.
Power
Can you
has
see
reached.
it?
There we go.
There it
Now
is.
we
There
got
it
it.
is.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this is something Sol and I have been really excited to talk about. The
Yes.
National School Board Association Advocacy Institute. It's taking place in January of 2022. I think it's the 23rd to the 25th in Washington, D.C. So what is NSBA? NSBA is the National School Boards Association. It's a federation of state associations like WASDA. So these different state associations come together on a federal level to discuss education policies. NSBA advocates for over 51 million public school students. So it'd be crucial that our voice is represented at this conference. And currently NSBA is focusing on increasing equity and excellence through board leadership. At this conference, there'll be different keynote speakers. I think in the past, Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King, spoke along with a lot of well-known figures. Sol, would you like to continue to the next slide?
Sure. So what's the main focus of the conference? As Audrey said, it's the National School Board Conference. So it's WASDA, but on a national level. And it brings together education leaders to explore and discuss the latest developments in key education policy and legislation. So I think this is really important because it's important to remember that our school district and Washington school districts are very different from what they have in Florida or Texas or Maine. And we get to see that reflected at a national level and see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what we can get better, and interact with people across the nation. So we get to champion the interests of K-12 students in public schools and advocate for education priorities and federal policies. This is essentially our chance to lobby the federal government, not just our state government, for our education priorities. And this is our main chance to actually do that. And then we get to network with colleagues from across the country. So this is a really important thing, and the conference is going to be a really good opportunity.
Okay, why we want to go. Sol, feel free to add in because I know we have different opinions on why we want to go. But overall, this is an excellent opportunity to share our district policy and goals on a federal level. At WASDA, we got to share them with state representatives, but to go beyond that would be huge. It also gives Southview School District a stronger voice in the federal government. Again, we're a unique district, we're rural, we're small. A lot of times at these conferences, you'll have big urban cities and big urban districts with thousands of kids, but we're such a unique district that it's important that we're represented in education policies. It also grants us as student reps the opportunity to talk with other student reps kind of about benchmarks of their district, what they're doing, kind of contrast and compare, see where we can improve, see, what didn't work for them, what might work for us. Just overall, I think creating a strong connection between student reps is extremely important. It also helps us form connections with federal companies and leaders that will assist us as a district and a board in the future, not even just at this conference. And this is the part I'm most excited for. On the last day of the conference, we would visit Capitol Hill to directly speak with U.S. representatives and senators. Again, our uniqueness is super important on a federal level, and through this, I would also gain more experience on advocacy, not only at this conference would I advocate for our district, but when I return, I would better be able to advocate on students and on our community. And just overall, it would be a great learning experience. Sol, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think all of this is amazing reasons, right, to go to DC to advocate for our students. It's also especially important this year because this is a crucial year for education. And I think when we look back in 20 years time, what year was the most important year to go to DC to advocate for South Whidbey School District? 2021 is going to be that year, and 2022. So I think it's a good opportunity, and we're really glad that Logan reached out to us. So this is a really good opportunity, and everything Audrey said is true. I absolutely agree that visiting our senators and our representatives is just an absolutely amazing experience. So I'm really excited about that.
One more thing I'd like to add, a huge thing we'd get from this conference is new strategies on how to reach our board visions and goals, which I think would help us as an entire board beyond just student reps. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as we saw at WASDA, those of us who went to WASDA, we all came back with inspiration. I think, at least I did, and I think we're just amping that up to the national level. So I'm looking forward to it if you choose to send us. Expenses. So this is the calculations I was able to do. All of this could change, but as of now, this is the current expenses. So flights, total cost of 2 round trips to DC from SeaTac would roughly be between $500 and $530. That's cheaper than I thought for 2 round trips. So, and then the registration fee. So for 2 students, it would be $1,390, and that includes hotel. So that's good. And then the total, including meals, would be $2,370. But that's not a final number, and that's really rough. So we didn't have that much time to actually calculate this, because just a couple days ago they told us about this opportunity, and they said present it to your board as soon as possible. So we weren't able to do exact calculations, but this is the rough calculations that we have. And I think this is cheaper than I expected. So yeah.
So logistically, since this is a field trip and the board would have to approve an overnight field trip, I just want to add in a couple questions. What are you planning for chaperone or and the other question is for the board itself. It's an appropriate conference for board members as well. So I'm not sure if any board members are considering going. We could put that on the board's list of things to approve, along with the students, if through your discussion, board members decide to go as well. So chaperones, are your parents going, or one parent, or?
There would have to be at least one chaperone, and if the board or at least one board member wants to go, then they could function as chaperone. So I don't know.
You're
That's up to
quite responsible out the WASDA conference, so I'm not the least bit worried about you handling yourselves.
That's good to hear, but
yeah. Yeah, you still need a chaperone to go across the country, but yes.
Can I offer just some reflections on my admiration for your engagement during the WASDA conference? I felt like you really took advantage of the opportunity, learned, networked, connected with folks like Logan. You mentioned Logan, and I wonder for the visitors who are present in our meeting and the family members who might be watching at home later, if you might just share a little more about who Logan is. But I just want to say, I feel like you really took advantage of that educational and networking opportunity and are going to leverage it for the benefit of our students going forward. And as our legislative rep, I also feel that everything I've learned about involving students in the legislative process is that having student voice at the center of what we do and having students building relationships in person whenever possible is the most effective way to bring more state and federal dollars into worthy public education. So from both the perspective of how you've engaged with previous opportunities and how useful this networking is in shaping policy, I would say, and funding, I would say that this is a very exciting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that Logan is the adult advisor from WASDA for the Washington State School Directors Association Student Rep Network. We meet bi-weekly on Mondays. So, and he emailed, I believe, all the student reps that are part of that network with a formal invite.
I think there's what, 23 student representatives, something like that, roughly, that are part of that network. And he's our representative in Olympia. So very important person for us to know. Thank you,
Yeah,
Marty.
I think
That
this is
that was very nice of you.
I think this is an amazing opportunity for you two. I think anytime students can engage in their government in a really specific and important way, it's super powerful. You know, I think it'd be wonderful to have you represent us on a national scale. And, you know, I totally echo what Marnie said. I would say that my only concern is travel at this time, live travel. Just because we're embarking into, you know, a flu season and a continued mid-pandemic situation. Are there virtual options for this conference as well? I mean, I understand live is best, but are there alternatives to still stay involved if for some reason travel is unsafe at that time?
So Audrey, feel free to add, but both of us are fully vaccinated. So that's the first step for safe travel. But I think it's absolutely, especially with the new variant and everything, we don't know what travel will look like in January. And this is January. But we can cross our fingers. So we can't say anything for certain, but it's up to the board to decide if it's safe and if that's something that's worth it. But I certainly think it is. I certainly think that considering that we're both vaccinated, considering that we're taking all the precautions we can, and considering that I didn't see a virtual option, but I don't think it would be the same at all. So considering all that, I think it's worth taking the risk traveling and worth taking the risk that flights might be delayed, might be canceled, but we're risking it. And I don't know, Audrey, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank Anne for the concern, because definitely with COVID, there's a lot of concern and there's really no certainty. I'm also, as Sol said, fully vaccinated and would be willing to get tested before and after travel, as well as strictly following COVID protocol. I think the biggest part of this conference is being there in person and directly communicating with U.S. representatives. You know, we could just send an email to our representatives, but I think having a direct conversation is the most important part of it.
All right, I have a statement for you and a question, a follow-up, but I had the opportunity when I was your age to go to Washington, D.C. for a week under a program called Close Up. I don't know if it still exists or not, but it was quite an experience. In dollars for dollars, that was $600 in 1979. So that's a lot more than you're proposing right now in today's dollars. So that's a heck of a deal that you are putting out there. Anyway, let's go back to your chaperone. You mentioned Logan. So how many students to chaperone ratio do we need? And is there does the opportunity exist to use a chaperone from another district or Logan, for example, on your behalf?
So I don't believe Logan can function as our chaperone. He's what, like 21. He's I don't think he can, but
He cannot.
we haven't looked into any of that.
The board's policy requires that there be a chaperone. We could, if a board member went, that would constitute a chaperone for at least one of the students. Again, we would they obviously need two different rooms, and the chaperone would have to be of the same gender. So if it's not a parent and there's no board member, we would have to work that out. Tell me the dates again.
January 23rd to the 25th. I'd also like to mention that my dad works virtually and he'd be able to pay his own way to go to the conference as a chaperone.
So you're covered for a chaperone. So again, we still have to answer the question of, I know it's short notice, but is there a board member or two that is wanting to go to this conference? Because that would also provide a chaperone opportunity.
That was the comment I was going to make.
Yeah.
Is I think it would fit well with Brooke and or Marnie's roles on the board, and not to exclude you, Anne, but
Well,
but
yeah,
I-
it is legislative, and it is they are the mentors for these two folks. So
yeah. So
not to pressure you to go to Washington in a month, but
I would be in support of Brooke or Marnie joining.
Right. For myself, I would have to look at my work calendar and my personal calendar, which I don't have access to on this device. But I think it would be unlikely that I could go on such short notice, given my family commitments and other obligations. Although the opportunity sounds wonderful, and with a longer on-ramp, I would love to experience something like it in the future.
And if I am able to go, and if Marnie, you find out that you are able to go, I would be glad to yield a spot to you if the board thinks that having one of us along would be a good idea. But I would be kind of ecstatic to do this. I think it sounds awesome.
And Brooke, just in terms of room and gender matching, if Audrey's bringing a parent and Sol has a male board member in attendance, that might be a nice balance.
I think y'all would make an amazing team.
so if the board, you have a motion in a second, I would suggest that you not put any dollar amount, because Christy will get the flights, the hotels, the registrations, et cetera, for those who are going. And to Saul's point, it may or may not be accurate what he was able to determine. So I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want the board to put dollars on it. We'll be able to do that from the district.
So I believe it would be the intent then would be to have the 2 student reps and 1 board member, identity to be determined, attend this conference. Yes?
Yes.
And
I make a motion to have 2 student board reps and 1 adult board member attend the NSBA conference in January 2022, and to have the district fund travel and lodging and registration costs.
Brooke, could I make a motion a little bit different from that?
I withdraw
think-
my motion.
Okay.
Okay, it has not been seconded, so yes.
I would like to make a motion to send our 2 student board reps and up to two chaperones, whether they be board members or community members, to the national conference.
So are you suggesting, Andrea, that the district would fund the chaperone since it's a
I
field
think
trip?
that would be appropriate.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, we would typically do that if there were chaperones going to a Washington DC trip.
Okay, we have a motion on a motion to clarify the original motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so then we'll be voting on the clarification that Andrea provided, that the district approve and fund the travel of 2 student reps and 2 either board members or community members as chaperone, up to 2 board members or community members as chaperones for them. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Damien, you're muted, but
Brooke, hold on, I was muted. There's discussion on that.
yes, please, let's.
So
Yeah.
there should be a discussion on the cap, because what if it came back to be $27,973?
Yep. Okay, do we have a
That's
suggestion?
fine, that, you can do a not to exceed.
Yeah.
That would be reasonable. I just don't know that we're going to get flights at $250 each way. We might. You could do a maximum the hotel, again, what's reasonable? $2,500 per person?
I would be comfortable with a not to exceed 10,000.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
I don't think it'll come to that, but that would give us the wiggle room we need to get the flights and hotels and meals, et cetera.
Damien,
That
does
would
that,
also support any accommodations needed should there be any flight delays or anything happening.
Damien, does that suit your suggestion?
It does, and I would also add that if they're able to stay an extra day or arrive a day early for their own sightseeing or something, they might be beneficial as well. I had the opportunity to go to the National Zoo and see the pandas when they first arrived. It was great. So things like that are very beneficial and they're very educational. And I hope that you take full benefit of the opportunity being presented. Sounds like you guys did a great job at WASDA. That's awesome. And you guys are on the right path.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the addition to that. That's a fantastic addition to that motion. Thank you, Damien.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of sites to check out. I'd like to go to Georgetown.
Well, I want to see the Russell Senate Office Building. So you can go to Georgetown. I'm going to go to the Russell Senate Office Building.
It's also kind of fun to go to the top of the Washington Monument and look out the little windows.
I'm not sure if you could do that right now, but that is an awesome thing to do.
So do we need a revised motion or procedure now?
I'm not sure about.
Basically, the superintendent has the authority for the expenses, and I know that your limit's 10,000. So you don't have to modify.
Yeah. I was going to suggest we have a motion on the floor, and then we have all agreed on a directive to the superintendent associated with the motion that it is not to exceed $10,000.
Excellent.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to approve 2 student reps and up to 2 board members or community members to attend the NSBA conference in Washington, D.C., please say aye.
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 And I'll be a community member by then.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion passes, and we will be funding a trip for at least the 2 student reps and some chaperones. Excellent. I'm really excited about that. I think it's
on your field trip, Rick.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity for all of those who can attend. Next item of new business is memorandum 2122-28, approval of the pro and con levy committees. We will need a motion to set the size and members of to set the members of each of the committees, is my understanding.
I move to accept all 6 names presented, 3 for and 3 against.
Do we have a second? Not hearing a second. Do we have another motion to put on the floor?
I make a motion, we accept 2 for and 2 against.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's discuss. Because we'll need to put an amendment on the motion to determine who the 2 on each side are once we've decided that.
Christy, could you pull up the names again? I would like.
I don't have that actually. It's Dan who has the name.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
I would like to consider us moving forward Lorinda Newton and Margaret King on the con committee, and Teresa Forsyth and Betsy Hufses. How do I say the last? Hofius on the 4 committee. And my rationale for that is I think it's transparent, local to the community. The only piece that bothers me about it is we don't have any Freeland representation, but it doesn't look like Freeland wanted to put their voice into the pool. But I think that also eliminates, Brooke, any potential conflicts of interest that you may feel, and it continues to keep it a local issue.
I support that philosophy and plan.
Andrea, that approach was what I would have recommended. Thank you.
I will just note that I will be abstaining from the vote since my name is on the list. So any more discussion about this?
This makes sense. I would have preferred if all 6 members were included in the process since they all expressed interest in being part of the process. But given the fact that the 2 and 2 is more community centered, those choices make more sense.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to move forward with the con committee of 2 and a 4 committee of 2. We have discussion that has resulted in suggesting Lorinda Newton and Margaret King for the con committee and Teresa Forsyth and Betsy Hofius for the 4 committee. Any other discussion to be had, or should we put that to a vote?
Vote.
Hearing no further discussion, and with Damien's note, all those in favor of a con committee of Lorinda Newton and Margaret King and a 4 committee of Teresa Forsyth and Betsy Hofius, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The motion is passed as such. We have a 2 and 2 committee with those named members. Last point of new business is memorandum 2122-29, approval of the South Whitby High School athletics scoreboard replacement. Do we have a motion in regards to this? Would we like some discussion before any motion is put on the floor?
That would be appreciated.
Okay, Dr. Moshe, can you address this?
Absolutely. The scoreboards on the fast pitch field, we're looking to replace that, as well as the baseball scoreboards. They just haven't been replaced, and this is something that we're looking to do sooner rather than later. It really can't wait for the bond vote next November. And it's really, again, the issue of the softball field needs to be brought up to standard. So.
Are there any questions to be had from board members?
Okay, I just have a comment. I would just like to say I appreciate this because football has a really nice screen for their scoreboard. So I think it's only fair if other sports like fast pitch have a new scoreboard as well.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to express a little sticker shock. You know, these numbers are astonishing, and yet I trust that people who know more about scoreboard replacement than I do have done some market research and understand why this is the right choice and why this is the right price point. So I just want to express that if there's a good reason why those numbers are what they are, then great. And if there are savings to be found, I'd love to hear about that.
In the past, we were able to secure some advertising. Dan, I don't know if you have any more comments about it.
Yeah, each scoreboard roughly runs about $20,000, and it's been pretty standard, even going back to when we replaced the one at the middle school several years ago. It's basically the cost of these things. The football scoreboard was much more. It's a much larger sign than you would have on a baseball field or a softball field. But unfortunately, in the public forum, things are expensive. And we see that in buildings, construction, and everything else. But roughly, it's about $20,000 per unit to have those replaced.
I see. Thank you. That
It
helps.
doesn't really matter which vendor you use. They're all very similar in price. And the other thing I point out is that the ones they're replacing, they are 30 years old. So for an electronic unit, that's basically old light bulbs. It's a very ancient scoreboard, and they do fail during the games, which makes it a little difficult to, try to be involved in the game if you can't see what's happening as far as what's going on.
Sure. And in this age of planned obsolescence, it's amazing that an electronic device has lasted 30 years.
Well, the old ones were basically light bulbs. They were much simpler,
Thank
Um,
you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the extra information.
but it's a standard price. You know, you can look at various manufacturers, but they're all within the same range.
Yeah, I agree, Marnie. I had some sticker shock or two. I decided to run some numbers as I do. And according to my rough back of the napkin math, that's about 3% of our capital improvements budget for the year.
That does help put it in perspective. Thank you.
And I could be off on that. That's assuming, Dan, that part of the budget is about 2.1 million, right?
Well, the capital projects is about 1.2 million,
Okay, 1.2. So it's about 6%.
because half of it's technology and half of it's capital projects
Right,
roughly.
yeah, sorry, I was lumping the two of those and I
Yeah.
shouldn't have. But yeah, so it's about 6% of our capital improvements budget for the year.
Mhm.
Or you can look at it for the last 31 years, you've had one scoreboard that's basically not cost you anything.
Right.
Yeah.
We're amortizing this over the next several decades, I hope.
Yeah, and I think the important aspect of this is we really need to bring the fast pitch field up to the standard of the rest of the district,
Yep.
because it needs the work.
Yeah.
And this is one component of improving that part of the facility.
It's an improvement I'm sure many students would approve of. So that's the only input I can give.
Thank you all for the discussion and further information from the administrators. Do I have a motion in regards to this approval or approval of?
I move to approve the scoreboard replacement by replacing the existing baseball fast pitch and auxiliary gym scoreboards.
Okay,
I'll
do I have a
second.
second? Well, okay, it's been moved and seconded. We just had discussion, but I'll pro forma. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, memorandum 2122-29, approval of the South Whidbey High School athletics scoreboard replacement has been approved. We'll move on to reports, and we're going to try to move these along since we have power issues all over the place. So Mr. Pullman, enrollment and financial.
Yeah, well, first, I can't give you a financial report. It's too early in the month. We don't have bank statements, so I won't be doing that, and I'll catch you up next month on that. And enrollment for December 1st was 1,158, which is about where we were last 2 months at 1,161. So it's been really steady. We're still ahead of budget, and I am done.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll now move on to the student representatives report. Saul and Audrey.
I think we have a presentation for this one as well.
We do have a slideshow.
You'll bring it up. There you go.
All right, thank you. South Whidbey High School ASB. So the executive ASB has been planning some pretty big things going forward. Intramurals, which is sports during the lunch. And we'll be starting with volleyball in January, and then Interhigh, which is a ASB event where different ASBs from different schools visit other ASBs from other schools. So it's a great opportunity for student leaders to interact with other student leaders across schools. So the ASB events committee, they planned a Tuesday assembly, which was the transition from fall sports to winter sports. And then they're planning MLK events for January. The banner committee is organizing a high school survey on banners and equity messages at the high school. The ASB equity committee is expanding outside of ASB and they're trying to include other students from middle school and high school. So expanding outside of what it was originally supposed to be, which is good, very good to hear. That's something Audrey is taking the leadership in. And then the freshman ASB is going to vote for their ASB members during the next advisory period. So we're getting a lot done as an ASB. Oh, sorry. Any questions? We're going to ask for questions after every slide. So does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, but I love that the equity committee is expanding outside ASB. I think it's great to get more diverse voices from other groups within the school. I think that's fantastic.
All right.
Okay, the high school leadership class, as well as ASB, have been super productive. We have a pretty busy 2 weeks until break. There was a tree planting event yesterday where 15 trees were donated, kind of just like a carbon neutral holiday event instead of, cutting down trees. There's also a movie night last week. I was there, but I can't actually. Oh, it was called Over the Hedge. It was called Over the Hedge. So it was just a really fun movie put together by ASB. I think it was a junior class, a fundraiser for Tolo, the dance. There's also Winterfest happening next week, which starts at 11:30 on the last day, kind of, just to have a fun little send off for a break. There's going to be activities, students can kind of get assigned to certain rooms to do activities of their choice. Laser tag, which was going to be an event put on by ASB, actually got canceled. Currently, everything that's happening around the country with Michigan and the possible threat at the high school, we just thought it wasn't appropriate to have something that involved lasers that resembled guns. Leadership. Okay, leadership is also planning a whodunit mystery night. There's not many details on that quite yet, but it'll be similar to Clue. There's also Spirit Week next week, where students just dress up, different themes, and just overall very, very productive leadership class. Sol, do you want to add anything or any comments from the board?
We have a uniquely productive leadership class this year. Credit goes to Mr. Silva on that.
I think it's a very, very intelligent idea to cancel laser tag.
Yeah, that was an optics issue, but it made sense. We may still do it in January.
And I think it's fantastic that both ASB and leadership are so engaged and involved in working on so many things. I think that's fantastic.
So the high school clubs, let's try to speed it up. I don't want to lose power. So Social Justice Club, Model UN Club, RAC Club, Interact Club, Days for Girls Club, Mental Health Awareness Club, Queer and Trans Club, and Homework and Games Club all are being very productive. I was going to talk to the club president individually, but because of the power outage, I wasn't able to do that. So that's all the information I can give you right now. Except for the clubs which I'm directly involved in. And I can say Model UN Club is planning a debate, and RAC Club is nominating students who have been exceptionally kind. So that's all I know. I apologize for lack of information.
I have a few updates on the other clubs that Sol didn't mention. Social Justice Club is currently working on posters that resemble the equity themes on the banners. Interact Club worked on the Afghanistan refugee drive. Days for Girls, which has now changed the Cycle Club, is holding a menstrual product drive just in the high school. Mental Health Awareness is working on long-term goals, and the Queer and Trans Club is have been having movie nights, and they're working on some other projects as well. And I know Homework Club has been meeting after school. They're always on the announcements, so good for them. Very productive club.
Thank you both. And I just want to add, there's no need to apologize for work that couldn't get done during the power outage. I have a big really large pile of work that didn't get done due to the power outage. We understand.
Me too.
Okay, so South would be the 7-8 campus, which is also at the high school. ASB hold a We Scare Hunger food drive. They collected over 1,200 items, both from the 5, 6, and the 7-8 campus. So that's great. There's also a holiday house going on. It's right now ASB is gathering ribbons, gift tags, and wrapping paper. And then on December 10th, they're going to head down to the community center to work with Readiness to Learn to prep the holiday house. And there's also going to be an assembly in Spirit Week next week. I believe high school is also working on the holiday house. Recently, middle school students have been discussing wanting to start clubs, such as a LGBTQ plus club and other fantastic ideas. And winter sports are underway. Girls soccer and boys basketball have been having games.
Audrey, do you want to take this and I'll take the committees?
Sure.
Can I jump in for a sec, actually?
Please
on the
do.
clubs? I'm a huge proponent of clubs, and I think that they're fantastic. I wonder if there's an opportunity for some of the 9-12 clubs to help mentor those 7-8 clubs.
That is something I think, especially when some of the clubs have overlap, we should definitely look into that. And I think that's something that I want to meet with all the different club presidents and discuss a lot of different things, but that's something that I'll add to the list. Thank you.
Okay, so recently Sol and I have been making an almost weekly visit to the elementary campus to talk to. Our last visit, we sat down with 3 4th grade mediators and kind of had a one-on-one interview. We talked to them about the different leadership programs at the elementary school. There's the mediator program, which they have different training sessions and they kind of learn how to problem solve on the playground. There's lots of focus on stopping bullying. And just problem solving overall and following specific steps. Orca leaders offer assistance in classrooms, whether it be art or reading, just overall helping their peers or younger classmen. There's also bus helpers who make sure students are getting on the correct bus, very important, and following bus rules. There's also library helpers who pick up books around the library and assist students with finding books that interest them. Talking about books that interest them, there's also a book club going on. One of the mediators was discussing how they're able to connect with the topics in their books, which I thought was really interesting. And at that age is super important. And there's also garden going on. They talked a little bit about the comprehensive snack program. They have new farmers on the garden. And school lunches and breakfasts. So Sol and I have been working on our food service committee, and the 3 mediators we talked to actually had very positive info on school lunches at the campus. Favorites, definitely pizza, corn dogs, and parfaits. And we're hoping to add 2 elementary schoolers to our food service committee, which we'll be talking about later. And I just saw your comment, Brooke. Thank you.
Just want to jump in for a sec on the food service team. So Mrs. Richards is working with the school wellness team. And if she hasn't, she will be in touch with you to kind of join forces on that because they're working on a wellness policy. I don't know if she's reached out to you yet. Have you heard from her yet?
Not on specifically food service, no.
Okay, because the wellness committee is very interested in our food service and they went and visited Coopville, for example, to look at their food service program. And they would also like to be in contact with Rachel when she gets back from leave. So you're both working toward the same goal. So hopefully you can work together.
Yep. Speaking of which, the food service committee. So the design that Audrey and I came up with was we would have representatives from each campus, student representatives, 2 high schoolers, 2 middle schoolers, and then 2 elementary schoolers who would give input to our food service staff and Rachel, and actually talk hopefully with the Chartwells people when they visit in January, which would be a good opportunity. And as Dr. Mocha mentioned, I think because it's so important for wellness for students, it's an issue where this can have a big impact. So I hope that the food service committee, we can sort of combine forces with other groups and try to figure out how we can improve food service at the district. And then the pledge committee. So the board assigned the student representatives with pledge committee. I think the idea that we had was to have 2 teachers, 2 students, and 2 community members give input to the board and provide information on the Pledge of Allegiance and sort of what the different perspectives are on the issue of whether the Pledge of Allegiance should be used at school board meetings, and whether or not it should be used here, because that's been an issue that members of the community have been interested in and board members have been interested in. So we're hoping that we can also get that organized. Those are 2 of the big projects that we're working on going into December and January. Other news. Audrey, do you wanna start us off?
Sure. I think we could both talk about this one a little bit. So most of us here are aware of the possible threat that was made against the 712 campus last week. I think in the superintendent's report, we'll probably get a little more information on this. I would just like to say overall, with what happened in Michigan and the trend of these threats around the country, it was scary for students. I think the day after, you know, the vibe in the school was definitely a little bit off. Students were kind of concerned. You know, what if what happened in Michigan happened here? I think because of the timing of it and it being made 2 weeks prior, it wasn't as much of a concern as it was previously made a threat, but I don't think that makes it any less of a threat. And there's also a band concert. Sol, do you want to add anything to the possible?
Yeah, it's important to note, I think, that there were threats made against schools across Washington and across the country. We weren't alone. And I think it was definitely a shock to the student body, but actually compared to previous threats, I think we felt more reassured and there was less anxiety on the day after. And that was definitely something that it was definitely, we felt more reassured this time than in the past.
If I can, do you have any thoughts on what you'd attribute that difference to? Was it the situation, the administration's response, just getting used to it? Hopefully not.
I hope it's not getting used to it. I don't think it's getting desensitized towards these things is not something that we want to happen. But this specific situation where, and I'm sure that Dr. Moch will cover the details as much as we're supposed to know. But this situation, the threat was made 2 weeks prior, and because of that, it didn't feel like it was such an urgent and pressing thing. So it was a situational thing.
Thank you. Just curiosity.
Band concert. Audrey, were you at the band concert?
I was not, but I did talk to a lot of students in the band concert, and I didn't get to hear what they said because I wasn't obviously at school today, but they were excited for the concert. Sol, I know you're part of band, so would you like to add anything to that?
They did absolutely wonderful. I am very proud. I'm not in band anymore. I had to prioritize getting my credits so I could graduate over getting an extra arts credit. So I couldn't be in band this year, but they were absolutely wonderful. our band, the number of band members is a little less this year than before COVID, but they were really able to impress us. So I'm really glad that it happened. And this was the first band concert since before COVID. They did a really good job. I wish all of us were there, but it was really good music. Mr. Harshman, they all did a really good job.
There's also an art night, hopefully happening on January 21st. I believe leadership is planning it with Mr. Silva. There's a few details that we aren't quite certain on yet, but it will be the film classes, the art classes, and the music classes kind of coming together to put on a walkthrough where students and community members can enjoy what's going on in the arts programs at the high school, which is great. There's also a Wood Beyond Film Festival coming up, and Mr. Silva is focusing on organizing a student section, which is fantastic. Winter sports season is beginning. Like mentioned previously, we had an assembly transitioning them over. I know basketball is underway along with girls and boys, along with wrestling. And high schoolers are also helping with the holiday house that middle schoolers are organizing.
Yes, I think the holiday house was supposed to be today. If I'm not mistaken, because I remember I was supposed to do that.
So it was today.
So another casualty of the power outage, but hopefully we'll be able to do that another time.
Thank you both very much. I wanted to note that we've got the live streaming capabilities for the winter sports through that new service, and that's a fantastic opportunity for folks to watch some of the games from home. If, well, the driveway happens to be blocked by a tree, or if they have, other things to do in the evening, but still want to keep up with what the sports are going on. I believe you can find the link to that on our athletics website, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Do any members of the board have any suggestions for what we should include in future presentations? We can't be doing that good. There's got to be something we're missing.
Orchard still might have something planned for you, which is a project for the two of you. And I don't know if she's developing that now or not.
Well, we've got a couple of the projects, the two committees that they talked about are two projects that they are working on, but we're always going to be looking for more opportunities for that.
Yeah, I think we've pushed these two farther than any other of our board representatives. So I'm pretty pleased with the work they're doing. They're spending a lot of time doing board work.
One thing I'm grateful for is I really appreciate that you take time to hear from students and maybe seek perspectives from students outside your own social networks. And so to continue to bring forward either quantitative or qualitative information about student experience is really of value to me, related to a wide variety of aspects of student life.
I'm hoping that just to continue that, I'm able to take a period off next semester to just focus on board work and hopefully get credit for that. That's something I'm working on. So to continue to be able to reach out, because covering K-12, covering all the campuses, covering all this variety of information it's really important, and I want to take that seriously.
Mm-hmm. And I recognize the time commitment and the energetic commitment that you're making in order to do that.
Yeah, I know there was some discussion of an independent study or something along those lines, but I know that you'll work that out with Mr. Patton and Dr. Moshe, I assume also. I had some thoughts. I just on my own social media, I noticed a lot of concern following the incident, the recent incident that had been sparked in
parents and community members via the student rumor mill. Students who had heard things from other students that weren't necessarily accurate and that had spread up then to their parents and other community members. And I was wondering if you would both be willing or able to maybe collect some student thoughts on ways that you could suggest to the administration to help with that. And I recognize, and I'm looking at Dr. Moshe, I recognize that I'm stepping outside of board responsibilities here a little bit, but just looking at the school community and how we can make that feel and be safer. So some thoughts on that might be valuable.
As we go into the superintendent's report, what's impossible for us, and I'll bring my screen up in a minute, is we received complaints that we weren't fast enough, and it's hard to be fast enough when you have to gather accurate information and find out what's really happening. Meanwhile, it gets posted on social media because somebody heard from somebody and put it out there. The same thing happened. We had an incident on the playground at the K4 campus. Student fell off a piece of equipment, appropriately responded by calling 911. The nurse attended to the student. It was an injury. The student will be fine. But before we were even able to let folks know what had happened, it was out on social media because someone heard the 911 call. And I mean, controlling what folks say on social media or Alert Whitby is just, it's not something that we have power to really help with. I mean, that's why when our information goes out, we want to make sure it's absolutely accurate. And sometimes it takes more time. So I'm going to bring my screen up since we're already into that conversation.
And as you do that, I want to again thank Saul and Audrey for the report and for the in-depth report as always. Thank you.
Yeah. So superintendent's update. So yes, we did have a threat. Just to give you a timeline of that particular day, it was last Wednesday. We released students early on Wednesday, so we had a typical release at 1 o'clock. And at 2:25, the high school principal heard from the sheriff that the sheriff had found out that a threat had been made 2 weeks prior. Apparently a relative of the individual who made the threat. Again, this is me. I don't have the definite facts, but it seems that the incident in Michigan prompted this individual to provide their counselor with information regarding what they had received via text or Instagram. And so we reacted, and we have policy and we have a safety manual, and we followed that. And so Mr. Patton and I spoke with each other. He gathered as much information as he could. And then we put together a message that we sent out to all. So even with that, having spoken with the sheriff, having received information, we were a little bit frustrated by the information that came out in the newspaper, for example, saying that the threat had been made against specific individuals. The sheriff's office never told us that. And we still have questions about that. What we were told was that it was a threat that the student had made, that something to the effect, again, I have not seen it, something to the effect of being upset by having broken up with his girlfriend, and that he might as well go to school and, you know, kill people and then himself. So we followed that information. We provided as much information as we could to families the next day. And I'm glad to hear that students felt supported. It's very difficult. We had counselors on hand, and we certainly want students to feel like they have a trusted adult to turn to in situations like this. And again, to Saul's point, yes, it happened in many districts across the state. There was apparently, again, did not see it, only heard about a TikTok Threat Thursday video that had gone around. And once again, social media moves much more quickly than we are able to move. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't have any more information at this time.
My only question is there something that we as the board could do to assist the administration in this, or have we done everything that you feel that we can?
If you can control social media, we would really appreciate that. No, I think that, you know, our policies and our procedures and our safety manual really provide us with guidance. We update that every year. Certainly if the board has a sense of, you know, again, I feel confident that we move as quickly as we can. I would certainly love to get information out more quickly, but we really have to do our job and make sure that what we're putting out there is accurate and that we're, you know, doing everything we can to make sure our students and staff are safe.
Thank you for the additional information and especially the timeline. I think it helps us to understand what was taking place in those intervening hours. And the pursuit of accurate information to help avoid inflaming unfounded fears makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay. All right. I have a little dog in the background. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to move on now to January and deciding whether or not the board wants to change its way of having board meetings. We do still are required to have Zoom meetings, and that in-person component is an option. Do want to say that we have the equipment in place or will be in place by the time we get to the January 12th meeting. Wanted to give you a little context of what other districts are doing in the area. So I collected some data. We're pretty, well, you know, in terms of the island, everybody's remote on the island, but within our ESD, as you can see, 23 are doing both and 13 remain Zoom only. So I really wanted to give the board an opportunity to talk about it and decide if you're ready to move back to in person, or if you want to stay at in this format. Our next meeting coming up in January is in fact a retreat. It begins at noon. We have our guest Heather Lechner. She will be, and she and her team will be working with the board administration team to talk about being an ally and ally engagement around equity issues. Again, the students that day release at 1, so I would expect our student board members to join us as soon as they can that day as well. But we go noon to 4 with Heather Lechner. And then the board has a workshop that evening at 6:30. And I'm not sure if between 4 and 6:30 you want to meet on other issues or have a meal, or how you'd like to use that time. But those are the two things that I wanted the board to talk about was, do you want to go in person in January? And that first meeting is your retreat day. And so do you have a sense of what you'd like that to look like?
Yeah, and I just want to note that I feel comfortable with myself and Dr. Moshe saying when we're not going to be in person, but because it is a comfort issue for deciding that as part of the agenda and location in our roles as board chair and secretary to the board. But I absolutely
want to make sure that we get input from everyone before going back. So, thoughts?
I think I would like to see us try to come back in person in January, and I think the retreat time makes a good time to do that.
I appreciated the additional clarity that I heard in some of the presentations at the WASDA conference around just protocol when compliance with public health guidelines is not universal among meeting participants. And I just think, I really believe that our community wants to be able to speak in person, to share comment, public comment in person. And I would love to be able to hear voices and see faces. So long as we can actually protect one another by maintaining the public health guidelines in that space, I think returning to in-person feels right. And I feel a little more personally confident about understanding what is and is not an appropriate way of maintaining that safe environment now that I've had that training.
I agree. And as a student, where we don't really have the option whether we go in person or we attend school via Zoom, for the board to not meet in person and not give community members the opportunity to be at those meetings in person seems pretty hypocritical. I understand that there's issues regarding following the public health guidelines and everything, just like at the schools we have issues with, mask and social distancing and all those guidelines. And that's been an issue. But it seems to me like the right thing to do is to give community members and board members the opportunity to meet in person and also provide the opportunity to meet via Zoom.
Yeah, I think it would be great to go back into a hybrid model, especially if COVID protocol is enforced. I actually attended a lot of summer meetings when they're in person. And from those meetings, I felt like it was a lot more impactful to see board members like directly talk to each other, as well as during public comment sections, being able to connect faces and, kind of hear the tone of the voice rather than just reading a Q&A question. So definitely support going back into a hybrid model.
I concur. I definitely think we're at our best when we're live and we're able to engage in, in communication in person. I echo Marnie in making sure and feeling more comfortable in, having safeties in place so that everyone can feel comfortable and safe at those meetings. But I concur, going back to a hybrid model feels, and in January, that feels like a good fresh start and a really nice way to begin the new year.
Yeah, I echo what y'all said as well, in that it's way better, particularly in workshops. I mean, it's so critical to have that ability to engage in direct back and forth discussion in workshop settings. I do think that there is a difference between some of the school and the board meetings as far as ease of ensuring compliance with health guidelines and requirements and mandates, which is why we've been virtual this time. But I do think that, I agree that I think that it's a good time to go back. Damien, even though you won't be a board member at that time, I'd invite you to chime in if you feel moved to do so.
Well, you wouldn't like what I'm going to say, Brooke, but I would have never stopped in the first place. And I still remember the day that we were sitting there and Dr. Mocha was explaining about the COVID thing, and I was very apprehensive even about shutting the school down. I'm glad we did. It took a while to, yeah, if you're vaccinated, we should be great,
Okay. Thank you all for chiming in. It sounds like we feel comfortable, assuming that nothing changes with the Omicron variant coming in, that we would
be able to go hybrid in January.
And
Okay,
Dr. Macha, it sounded as though you had an additional question about how we wanted to use our time between the retreat and the meeting.
correct. Yeah, and again, I think that we certainly during the conference saw the benefit of being able to have conversation, and so from 12 to 4 you'll be working together, but we could have a meal and then take a break and then go back at 6:30. It's really up to the board how you want to spend the time. But it'll be a training from 12 to 4.
I certainly think there's value in having unstructured time where we're not doing board business to just be humans in the same space. So I think sharing a meal would be a nice end to our training day and a nice prequel to our meeting.
With the note that if we are just sharing a meal as humans and not discussing board business, it is not part of a meeting. But if we are going to discuss any board business, it needs to remain part of the meeting.
I think we should talk about pets personally, but I'm open to other topics.
I was thinking I could bring Battle for Hogwarts, which is a cooperative board game, and we could play that while we eat a meal. Just saying.
I love the idea of time to just get to know each other as people. I think that's fantastic.
Okay,
think
so we
Waz just
will,
showed us- Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Saul, go ahead.
I think Waz just showed us how important that is.
Mhm.
And I think we learned that a lot more about each other. I certainly did.
Yeah, we can play a mean game of air hockey, can't we?
Mean to our
Okay.
knuckles. Yes.
So I will set it up that way. We'll probably have a break at 4 and then, have a meal together, and then 6:30 will be a live, an in-person and Zoom opportunity. So will the training time, since it's the board's time, and it'll be a public event. So we will start at 12 with a very short training on how to use the equipment appropriately, and then move into training, and then we will be offline having a meal and then back on at 6:30.
Excellent.
Great, thank you.
As we move, anything else, Dr. Moshe, for the superintendent's report?
No, thank you very much.
As we move into board comment, I'd like to extend my thanks to Damien for the time you've spent on this board. You were an invaluable resource to me, especially when I was getting started. I've always valued we've had differences of opinion in private and public. We've had agreements in private and public. I have always valued particularly your institutional knowledge of the district and the board and how work is done, and also your foresight and thoughtful commentary and oversight on financial issues in particular. I think that we are losing a valuable resource of institutional knowledge and an important voice on the board. So thank you very much for your service.
You're welcome, Brooke. I will say this. I didn't write up anything spectacular to say. So this is just off the top of my head. As I reflect back over the decade, Dr. Mocha and I have had some extreme challenges and good work that we have accomplished from, and I'll just say it, saving Langley Middle School, and now it's an asset, and it's an asset that funds the district with additional financial needs. I mean, that's a great thing. We still have the Bayview School, another one that helps fund this district, and the thoughts of selling it or whatever were prominent, to the extent that made me sometimes think, well, you might as well just sell Mount Rainier National Park, because once it's gone, it's gone. So I hope that going back that far, that as you guys go forward, you realize that that campus it belongs to the community. It was belonged to the community before we were alive. And that's kind of where I was at. And it's a good place to keep if something happens, fire, earthquake, whatever, to one of your other campuses, that you have a spot to go back and continue to education. But we did a bunch of other stuff too. Linda and I brought the school representatives on board. That's been great. And to see what's happening right now with these two, I look forward to watching occasionally and seeing how it has progressed, because in the beginning, we were actually, our first one was interested in QR codes, which was kind of cool. And then, it just kind of changed through the time. And I look forward to watching that. And I think going to Washington, D.C. is a good thing. So thank you guys for going, and thank you guys for sending them there. So anyway, yeah, there's been a lot of neat things that we've done in the last 10 years, and it's been a good reflection. I would just tell you that as you go forward, if you really do think of me as a resource, like I told Marnie, Fred O'Neill was a good resource for me. And if I need Fred, I'd call him. If, Steve Scholes, I would call as well. Do that. Call us occasionally if you need that insight. I know I would help and give it to you. Throughout the last year, though, I realized that I've had many epiphanies. And of course, as we know, 2 years ago, I was not going to run. But as of late Friday afternoon, filing week, nobody had filed for a seat. And so I made the decision, okay, based on Andrea's push and the same with Julie's when I was in Canada, to file. But I think it's a good time to go. There's differences here that we definitely have of opinion. Like I said, epiphanies, especially through the last year, the challenges. I think it's a good time for me to go, and that I can be a better service from outside the board, because I will be looking at new and different challenges, I'm sure. One of them still being work, but I appreciate the 10 years of serving the community, and South Whidbey has been a part, and I'll say South Whidbey School District, because even though I went to Langley High School, it was still South Whidbey School District number 206. It's been a part of my life since kindergarten. It'll stay that way till I die.
Thanks, Damien.
Damien, I've always appreciated your leadership on the board and your work for the community. It's truly been a pleasure. You and I sort of started together. So I've always appreciated your opinions, including those where we had a difference of opinion, because it was always respectful. So really have appreciated your leadership. So I know you're not going anywhere, and you still have a great view of the ferry. So so we'll reach out when we need you, and we'll certainly need you to help us get this levy this spring.
All right, well, that's enough. I'm ready to go. I got laundry to do, and I got to go to work at 5.
I just wanted to thank you. Any other comments before we close down?
I have just a sliver of a board report. I want to echo the gratitude for Damien's decade plus of service. And, thank you for the time together, and also the offer of continued availability as a resource with your long history of expertise. I appreciate that. I just want to let folks know that there is a collaboration among the 3 districts of the island, Coupeville, Oak Harbor, and South Whidbey. We met this week and we'll be meeting monthly with 1 to 2 board members per district, and superintendents and school board reps invited as well, on an as can come basis to talk about legislative priorities. And I just wanted to say that it's a real treat to have camaraderie in that work, and to be able to approach legislators with one voice as a community, an island-wide community with pretty distinctive needs. So to my fellow board members, including student board members, if those meetings interest you, please let me know. I can email you the Zoom link. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're all set. This meeting has been adjourned. Thank you. And good night.
Thank you.